Hi, I'm John Munoz, and welcome back to the Business Networking Channel hosted by the Hispano Chamber of Commerce, LS Cruces. With me again is Toby Rue and our very special guest, Congressman Steve Pearce.
Thank you.
And a special guest at that.
Absolutely.
You know, we always think you're special, but today we have someone else a little special.
Well, thank you, Toby. I appreciate that.
Congressman, we left at the break and we were talking a little bit about your time in the military and being a pilot and how that has also shaped some of your values and things that you've done. And then you bounced into running your own business. So we were talking a little bit about what you've done in small business and talk a little bit about the committees so that we can talk about this deficit that we've been
debt.
having.
Okay, you bet.
Yeah.
All right. Well, my wife and I just were like everybody else in their mid to late 30s, kind of wondering what we were really going to do. We realized we didn't have a retirement of any kind built up. So we started thinking the only way we're going to get out of this mess, since we haven't invested 20 years in retirement, is to have our own business. And so literally went into a business, bought a small company with about 4 people in it. We grew it to over 50. And we held that until we got elected to Congress, got there. My wife and I split the management duties. We worked together every day. I mean, I never dreamed of having a marriage where I could be with my wife every day, all day long, and then we're together at night. We're best friends. Husband, wife, it's just been a really good opportunity.
Sounds too good to be true here.
But it is, I've met Cynthia, or Mrs. Pearce,
Yes, Cynthia.
and she's absolutely a
She
wonderful lady, and for the type of job that you have, she's got to be a great support.
She is, and so we ran the business. She would watch the business itself and the books. I would go out in the field and we would do the work, hard oil field work, blue collar things, work down hole. And after 14 years, pretty successful, and we got to Congress, and you could feel the company turning sideways. And you know, if a company's moving and turns sideways, like a car, it's going to roll upside down. Bad things are coming. And we just committed. She said, I got to go home and run the business. I said, no, ma'am, we don't do marriages away. Those are very bad things, and especially in Washington. I said, what we'll do is we sell the business. And so we did. And so she's now involved in a small, very small piece of business with our son-in-law and our daughter, and they're doing good. But now that I'm pursuing full-time this business of U.S. Congress.
Yeah, well, I have to tell you, when you were talking about you just fold up your sleeves and get to work, you know, we have so many people in Las Cruces and the surrounding community in New Mexico that are small business owners. And so I think for our members and our audience out there to have that really the pulse of your business background, to know that you've been in there at night pulling your hair out and saying, you know,
I did a lot more than you.
Well, I was just making a point. You know, things got to change, or something's got to happen. And,
Yes.
and when you're living a small business world life and you're looking for these things, the responsibility ultimately looks in the mirror, looks right at you.
It does.
And
And
you have
I
to
mean,
know what you're doing.
I look at it as no-notice exams. You know, we always live and you have your value system. You go into church every Sunday and you say, this is who I am. But all of a sudden, life will smack you with a no-notice exam, and you either pass it or you don't.
That's correct.
1999 to 2000, the price of oil fell from $20 to $6. Our revenues dropped 80%. We were at 20%. We had asked every person that worked for us to come work for us from a big company where they had fancy uniforms, big trucks. Our trucks were
Pensions
older.
back then?
Yeah, they had pensions. We didn't. And so everyone had come with us because they believed in us. They believed that we'd treat them fairly. And my wife and I looked at each other and said, we cannot lay these people off. Other companies laid off 75% of the workforce and gave 30% pay cuts. And I said, you know, if we give a pay cut, then they're going to lose their homes. So we brought our employees in and said, look, this could be 2 or 3 months, and we're just going to keep everybody on. Please just show up for work. We kept everybody at their pay level. Wow. Even truck drivers, we paid them 70 hours a week.
Wow.
Because they bought their houses based on 70 hours.
Sure.
A lot of overtime. And 11 months later, I told my wife, if it doesn't turn around, we're going to lose the company next month. And it just was like God was waiting for us to reach that point. The price went from 7 or 8 all the way to 20 immediately. We had the only team in place, and so for the next 6 months, we were able to make back what we had lost in 11 months previous.
Well, the market cycle I'm in my business, I know it very well. It comes and it goes, and you got to be prepared, and you can't be living on the hog. And my wife tells me all the time, some days we're having chicken, next days we're having feathers. So you choose what you want.
That's
and I
right.
say that's what it is.
It's Taco Bell feathers for you.
Mike.
But it's the balance. It really is the balance where you can't overdo it, but you can't pull back. If you pull back,
Right.
you're not going to be ready.
You lose everything if you have no structure.
Any smart
But you're
business
also
person
blessed.
knows that.
Yeah, and
Absolutely.
you're blessed to have survived it. There are a lot of business that didn't.
Did
and
not.
I think you can relate to that too.
Right.
And I saw that on some of your committees, you're on the Finance Committee and Finance Services Committee, what you're doing up at the House. And then you're the chair of the Native American and Border Security. So there are things that I think your actual life is actually prepared you very nicely to work in some of these technical things. And we want to move forward and talk about the financial crisis and some of the things that we're at. As much as we like to stay and visit longer, we do have to kind of cut this way. So we put this on here, the debt. Can you explain this chart and let's go into it and really get us the message out that we're trying to accomplish here?
People just want to know what's wrong with our economy, and they know something's wrong, but they can't express it, and people in Washington don't express it very well. And it's actually, my background is majored in economics here in New Mexico State, and it's not as complex as they want you to believe. The problem with our economy is that we're spending $3.5 trillion, the government is spending $3.5, and it's bringing in $2.2. Okay. Now, you know yourself, if your business is spending almost double what it's bringing in, it's not going to survive. Go ahead and I'll put our deficit. When you just do the math here, you subtract 2.2 from 3.5 gives our deficit. That's money that is that we haven't spent this year, but that we don't have coming in. And so I show this depicted as going out into this barrel of debt. This is the debt we've accumulated since the time of George Washington, and it's $15 trillion. Now keep in mind, all the way till President Bush II, it was about $5 trillion. From George Washington through Clinton, it was 5. President Bush ran it up about $5 trillion, and now then President Obama in 2.5, 3 years has bumped it another $5 trillion. So we're beginning to really accelerate the debt. Now we show this other kind of green sludge running over the barrel because the barrel is way overfilled. And this is also debt, but we're afraid to call it debt because if you said that we owe $202 trillion in debt, people would say you couldn't pay it off in 100 years.
That's breathtaking.
And they would say it is breathtaking. And this is Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, and Washington defines it no longer as money we owe. It's just the fiscal gap is what they call it. So this is basically what's wrong with our economy. In order to make this work, we have to borrow money, the same as you would in your business, and as we borrow that money, we accumulate more debt. The Chinese are our bankers, and you have to worry. The biggest worry if you're in a business that was running like this, you would worry about your banker not loaning you money.
That's right.
And the Chinese, 2 times in the past year, have hinted that they might not loan us money again, which tells us we're very near broke. In order to make up the difference between what we're not printing or what we're not borrowing, we are printing money. And as we print money to make this work, to make that deficit work, we print the money, and that then takes away the value of what you have in savings because we're inflating.
That's correct.
So right now people are seeing the price of gasoline skyrocket, the price of vegetables, the price of gold, silver, whatever is going up. It's not because that gold or silver is worth more today than yesterday. It's that your dollars are worth less. Vegetables are not worth more. They're worth the same thing to you today. It's your dollars are worth less, and so they cost more, and that's because we're printing money. Then the final piece of this chart is that and this is comes from the White House and the Congress both. It's nonpartisan. It's not a Republican idea. Is that our economy simply fails to function out here in 2037 if we don't fix this. Now in Washington, we're cutting this number. Right now you hear people talk about cutting spending, and they're trying to cut to 2.2. You guys are in business. I don't think that you can cut 3.5 deep enough to hit 2.2. No. That means we have to grow the number of jobs. As you put someone on and they pay taxes, this 2.2 goes up incrementally. But then the real benefit occurs if you take somebody off unemployment, they move from a cost of the government, so this gets incrementally smaller. 3.5 moves down, 2.2 moves up. So as you grow the economy and create jobs, the two move together. If we will grow our economy at 3.5%, which we've averaged the last 75 years, then this all begins to work. If we don't, then this is the outcome.
Sure. Well, I like the way you put this out. And you know, for our members and our audience out there, I think it's important to understand that when we look at this from the government's point of view, we really need to see that probably out here on this white skirts could potentially be Well, we talk about those small business owners that are out here creating jobs, creating opportunities to come in and add to this income so we can add more to the social.
And take away people out, you hire people off of welfare and put them to work.
You know, on this bottom side, if you can see this Social Security, Medicare, you know, I have a lot of conversations with people all the time on this about, you know, is it going to be there? Is it not going to be there? What's the service? And, you know, I tell people that originally when you look at Social Security, it was a supplement to someone that you're already doing. And I try to hammer that home, and I say, look, nowhere was this supposed to be primary.
Right.
This is supposed to be supplement to your 401ks, to your pensions, to your personal savings. And I think when we had the financial crisis, I saw the numbers that personal savings actually increased for a short amount of time, and I hope it can continue, but this job creation is really where I think we can get that solution.
It must be, and then if you want to know then how do we create jobs, you have to understand why we're not creating jobs, and that's again easy. We're not creating jobs because the taxes are too high and the regulations are too high. We just regulated the oil and gas business off the Gulf Coast. Now, I believe BP should be 100% accountable, but I don't think we should have killed one job. That was 100,000 jobs. People that used to be paying taxes here now are on unemployment. And that's, our government has squeezed down our job base. So we put a bill in recently saying, we want to keep the spotted owl alive up in the Lincoln National Forest up here by Alamogordo and Cloudcroft, but let's put timber workers back to work. I think we could hire as many as 5,000 people in the forest in southern New Mexico. Let's put people back to work. We can keep the species alive, but if we don't do it, then the outcome is going to be very dire. And this is what happened to the Soviet Union. You remember Ronald Reagan collapsed? This is exactly what happened. He made them spend more on defense. They couldn't pay for it. They went broke. And so we're doing to us what we did to them.
Well, yeah, and so that's something that we really appreciate what you're doing, Congressman. And that's a balance of I would say regulation and incentives for business to grow, because we've got to grow some more jobs.
But I think most importantly for our members, we're looking to just to see the chart so people can make this informed decisions. Call the congressman's office, put your vote to work, and let's come together, discuss how we can solve this, because there's not a one-size-fits-all, but we got to work together.
Yeah, this is not Democrat or Republican. This is American. Let's solve America. We can cross the political differences. We've got plenty of things we can disagree about later, but right now we need to come together and solve it. 5,000
jobs, that's almost a 1.5 in unemployment.
Yes.
You know, because I know that just in Las Cruces, Cytel, with our hires, we almost impacted a point, and obviously it's a smaller pool of people that we're talking about, but still, that's a lot of jobs.
A lot of jobs.
So, Congressman, we have so much more to talk about, and we want you to come back.
We will come back.
Wrap this up, and we just got into the meat. I feel like we need a sequel here. So we
have
will
to extend it to an hour.
We will extend our show to an hour. Again, I'm John Munoz. Thank you very much for watching the Business Networking channel hosted by the Hispano Chamber of Commerce, and thank you, Congressman Pearce, for visiting us today.
See you next week.